Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kathy Burlow, and I'm founder and president of PDX Veg, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to Kris Eisenman's cooking demonstration on how to prepare nutritious and delicious, high-protein and minimally processed meals. Kris is a professionally trained chef, and she's going to demonstrate practical and delicious ways to increase the protein content of familiar favorite dishes without sacrificing flavor, comfort, or simplicity. And through these recipes, you're going to discover how versatile plant-based ingredients can seamlessly enhance nutrition and texture. For instance, she's going to show us how red lentils can be blended into soups, stews, and sauces to add protein, fiber, and creaminess. And she's also going to demonstrate creative uses for tofu, from rich, dairy-free fillings to lighter versions of classic comfort foods. And you can ask questions by writing them in the Q&A, and I will read them out to Kris. And I will now turn it over to Kris. Thanks for doing this, Kris.
No problem. Thank you for having me, Kathy.
Yeah.
And I love questions, so interrupt me at any time. That goes for Kathy and for Q&A.
Yeah, I will be happy
to.
to.
The whole time. I love as more the merrier as far as questions go. Okay, well, let's get started. Our first recipe, I'm going to bring it over here so I don't forget anything. First recipe we're going to do is a creamy spinach, tomato, spinach, and artichoke sauce. And I use this sauce, which isn't particularly high protein on its own, but I use it with high protein options. I'm going to use beans today. I'll also show you a high protein pasta option that I use often and is readily available at Trader Joe's. I happen to love this one, but there's lots of high protein pastas out there too. Just a word about protein. Kathy put this in the intro. She might have just said it. We were distracted by our technical issues, but vegan diets provide plenty of protein. You don't really have to focus on protein. You'll get enough. But there are times in life when we might want more. And that's what Kathy asked me to talk about today. Plus, protein's kind of a hot topic lately, so we figured we'd cover it. So it's really easy to get 120, 130 grams of protein a day on a vegan diet with just a couple little tweaks to your diet, adding protein in, places that you might not normally put them. So the reasons you might want to do this is when maybe you're recovering from an injury, your doctor might say up your protein. Or if you're training really hard, like really good strength training, like really going at it, that's a nice time to add protein. As we age, we need a little more protein as well. So that's why we thought we'd cover it. So let's get going. We're going to start by sauteing up a little bit of onion. And I warmed my pan while Kathy was introing. I'm just going to put just a little bit. I don't tend to use a ton of oil, but I am going to use a little today. And I'm just going to swirl that around. You can see it moves very quickly because the pan was nice and warm. You always want to warm your pan early before you put your oil in. That's like one of those tricks. If you do that, you'll end up with a much nicer, better non-stick surface with these stainless steel pans. Let me just grab here we go. Just going to grab my trusty spatula. And we're going to put in 5 cloves of garlic. And I had this all minced up ahead of time. And when you're using garlic, you want to avoid browning it. When you start browning garlic, in fact, I'm going to take that off for a second because I feel like that got a little hot. When you're browning garlic, you tend to end up with like bitterness, and we don't want the bitterness. So no browning of garlic. Next thing we're going to do is add some tomato paste. I love this tomato paste from Trader Joe's. It comes in a carton that looks like this, and it comes in a tube. And the reason I like this tube is because a lot of recipes will call, like today, a 1/4 cup, which is just, a pretty little amount. And I have all this left, and this will keep in the fridge really well. So I love these ones in the tube. They come from Italy. They're delicious. And what we're going to do is we're going to let that tomato paste get some color change to it. And that helps bloom the flavor. It makes it some richer flavor. And so with weight, we're just going to move that around in the oil. I usually smash it down a little. And when the color changes, we will know we're ready to add some more ingredients. So that just takes a second or two. And I'm going to do everything a little quicker than I might do in real life, just because we're on the video and we don't have all the time in the world. So I'm just moving that around. You also know it's blooming because I think you can see on the video that there's some reddish coming out of it. And so it just gets a little darker is what I'm looking for. Keep moving that around. Let that get that color on it. Okay. I'm gonna let that sit while I grab some more ingredients. The next thing I use in this sauce is Calabrian, I think I said that right, chili peppers. And these, I'll put it closer to the camera so you can see. This is Bomba sauce from Trader Joe's. And it's the lowest cost Calabrian peppers I can find. Again, it's an Italian product, I believe. I'm looking, yep, Italy, product of Italy. They make some great food there. And I love these peppers. In addition to adding a really nice heat, they add a little bit of heat, not a ton. They're not overwhelming. They're more sweet than heat, although they do have some. So if you don't like pepper, you can just leave it out. But they also add some umami flavor, which is that sixth, I think it's the sixth flavor. Sweet, salty, I always forget them. But it adds some umami, which really, when you're cooking vegan food, I try to add umami anywhere I can, because those are those things that we don't get as easily since we don't eat meat. A lot of umami comes from meat, but it also comes from things like Calabrian peppers or tomato paste or mushrooms or miso, which I'll use in another recipe. So I'm adding a little of that. Turn down my heat. The camera likes my heavy duty burner the best, so I'm struggling a little with heat there. I usually would use this less burner here. And we'll let that cook a little. And now we're going to start adding some of our other ingredients. So one of them is stock. And I like this stock from Better Than Bouillon. I get it at Trader Joe's. And I'm adding 2 cups of water, which I mixed in this jar, along with, I think it's 2 teaspoons or tablespoons, I'm looking. Tablespoons of the bouillon. And I'm just going to put that in. It's going to splatter a little. There we go. And we'll let that start cooking down. So I'm going to bring that up to make sure it starts boiling. Make sure all my tomato paste comes off my spatula. Don't want to waste any of that. And we'll let that come up. It'll start boiling in a moment. And the next thing I'm going to add are my sun-dried tomatoes. Again, this is a Trader Joe's day because Trader Joe's has these sun-dried tomatoes. They're a great price, and I like them because there's no oil in them. So I'm not adding additional oil that I don't need in this dish. So these are just dried California tomatoes. And they're just over a cup. I think the recipe calls for a cup. Yeah, but I just use the whole bag. It's like a tablespoon more than a cup in the bag. So I just use the whole thing. And we're going to do a quick, they're pretty big, long pieces. I'm just going to cut them just a little bit. Oh, they tend to stick to your knife when you cut them, but we're just going to cut those up. And these Sun-dried tomatoes, if you've never had sun-dried tomatoes, they're so sweet and delicious. And this sauce really, the flavor from these sun-dried tomatoes just carries through the whole sauce. It's really delicious. Even some of my picky eater friends love it. So I'm going to dump that in the pan. And these tomatoes, when they're dried, they're leathery is not quite the right word, but they're dried, so they're pretty firm. And cooking them in this broth is going to make the flavor move throughout my sauce. And it's also going to soften up these tomatoes quite a bit. So we'll let those simmer. Again, I'm going to watch. I'm on a burner I wouldn't normally use. So I'm going to give that a watch as we go here. But I'm going to try to keep that like it is now, pretty slow, low simmer. So we'll see how that goes. And then we normally would cook this for about 10 minutes at this point. But what I'm going to do for this demo is we're going to finish up the sauce and I'm just going to let it cook while we do our next recipe. So I'm going to add some more ingredients to this and move it to a burner and just let it simmer in the background while we go. So the next ingredients that we'll add, so again, normally we'd wait about 20 minutes before we add these, but the next things we're going to do are add our tomato sauce, cashew milk, which is right here. I'm going to pour that in. And when that sauce has thickened like it normally would, it's just, there's something about stirring in the cashew and watching it change from like red and white to pink that I just love doing. I don't know why, but when I make this sauce, I love doing that. And as this sauce cooks, what cashew milk does, and by the way, that's homemade. I just take 2/3 of a cup of cashews and 2 cups of water, and I blend those. That's all that is in the cashew milk. So I don't spend money on the expensive ones that you can get at the store. 2/3 of a cup of cashews is pretty inexpensive. You can buy them in bulk in the Portland metro area. I'm sure you can in other areas as well. And as you can see, I'm just moving my spatula around and getting everything blended together. And I'm going to bring this back to a simmer. And we're going to let that simmer, and cashew milk naturally thickens as it simmers. So you don't have to add any thickener to this sauce. And cashews aren't super high protein, but they're similar to like dairy milk. So this has some protein in the sauce, but like I said, where we're going to add protein to this is what we're going to use the sauce for, which I'll talk about here in a minute as I get it combined real nicely. Oops, I knew I was going to do that. I knew I was going to get my stove messy. Okay, I'm just watching this as I let it heat up. That cashew milk was pretty cold because I had made it yesterday and left it in the fridge. So, and you'll see it'll come together, it's still kind of combining, and it's this really pretty pink color. As those tomatoes get softer and softer, it'll get more and more pink, which makes it a really pretty sauce. I'm just gonna, I don't think that's getting close there. You can see it's already starting to thicken. See how I move? You can see it's a lot thicker than just even a minute ago when I first poured in that milk, that cashew milk. So I'm just keeping it moving. Anytime you're working with cream sauce, you really want to watch that sauce carefully, which will be tricky today because I'm going to do another recipe while this simmers. So I'll have to multitask a bit. But you really want to watch it and make sure that you never let it get too hot because it'll burn on the bottom of the pan, and we don't want that. Oh, and you can see it's really thickening up on the edges too. So that's going to simmer. I'll move this over here. I'm going to add my artichokes now. They can simmer with it. These are just artichoke hearts. I haven't been seeing them frozen lately. So these were from a can and they were whole, so I quartered them. So I took each artichoke heart and I cut it twice to make 4 pieces of that artichoke heart. Any questions so far, Kathy?
Not yet.
Okay.
I have one for you if somebody doesn't have a question, but it's going to come after you're at the end of this.
Okay. So we are going to add spinach to this, but we're going to do that after it cooks for a while. Remember I said that those tomatoes need to cook? So I'm going to move this over to another burner and just let it cook while we make our next recipe, which is the soup.
So maybe I'll ask my question now. You had a lot of nice things to pair it with, and I'm just curious, how much does this batch, how many people would be able to benefit from this?
Yeah, so it depends how hungry they are, of course, but that's at least 6 servings. So this, did I show this already, the red lentils? So this is the high protein pasta that I like. There are 6 servings in this bag, and it's a pretty big serving size, 3/4 of a cup dry, which is a lot. Because when it obviously that's probably close to 2 cups when it's softened. And that's 15 grams of protein, which is incredible. Like normal pasta has maybe 2 to 4. So it's really nice. It's made of red lentils, which is going to be used in our next recipe. Same red lentils I'll show you in that recipe. And it's really delicious. So this sauce would be a lot of sauce for this whole package of red lentils. I'm going to plate it up later on white beans. And mixing the white beans and the red lentil pasta is another way of getting a lot of protein, because beans are great for you, not just because of the protein, but all the fiber they have. So I often serve it just with the beans and the sauce, but you can also do the pasta, the beans, and the sauce. I'm going to start the burner over here.
And how long, if you weren't ready to eat it today, how long would it keep the sauce?
The sauce will last 5 days in the fridge. And another way I use it is I can make lasagna from it. And when I make lasagna from it, sorry, I'm going to move that off the heat so it doesn't get too hot. When I make lasagna with it, I've done 2 different ways. One way is I've used very thinly sliced super firm tofu. Super firm tofu is also marketed sometimes as high protein tofu. So it's really, really dense. I've seen it at Trader Joe's. I've seen it at Whole Foods, New Seasons. Not sure if I've seen it at Fred Meyer's. I have to think about that. I don't remember seeing it. But you can slice it really, really thin, like 1/8 of an inch, and layer it instead of pasta noodles, or you can layer it with pasta noodles. And I gave a recipe for a tofu ricotta, again, a high protein filling choice that you can make lasagna with, along with either more tofu, which sounds weird, but it's really delicious, or with regular pasta noodles. So lots of different ways you can use the sauce. They're all really delicious.
We do have another question about, do you ever cover the pot with a lid, or do you just cook it open like that?
I'm cooking it open because I actually want it to thicken, and I want any water that's in like those artichokes to evaporate. So when I want something to thicken, I usually leave it uncovered. That's a great question. If it was real splattery, I might put a cover on it like part way if it's splattering, but I don't want it to splatter. I want to keep it really low. My heat very low, so it just barely simmers over there. Great question.
Great. Thanks, Ha.
Okay, let's go on to our next recipe, which is a soup with those red lentils. They're in that pasta. Red lentils are one of my favorite ingredients. I love it in this soup. and that's why I decided to make the soup. But you can also sneak them in places. I could put red lentils in this sauce. It wouldn't be as creamy because it would have more fiber and texture, but it would work. My favorite place to put them, and people don't realize I do it sometimes probably, but is just tomato sauce. If you want a really quick dinner and you don't have a lot of time, you can take a jar of tomato sauce and put a cup of red lentils in that. It'll expand it. It'll make you more full because protein and fiber makes you full longer. So it's good for that as well. And it's higher protein.
Would you blend it or just mix it?
You don't have to blend it, though. You'll see when they go in the soup. You can blend it if you want a really smooth texture, or you can leave it and they just kind of disintegrate. They're not like regular, you know, they're not regular, but they're just another lentil. Brown or green lentils stay their shape. These red lentils don't do that. They just kind of disintegrate, which you'll see in a minute in this soup.
Okay.
Excellent question.
Thanks.
So we have the soup. Again, we'll start the soup. I've let the pan come to temperature. You always want to do that with stainless steel so things don't stick. And then I'm putting, that was probably 2 teaspoons. I don't look real close. And I'm just going to swirl that around because it's quicker than moving it with a spatula. And it also, when I swirl it around, I'm also seeing how fast it moves, and that's telling me how hot it is. So I'm doing all those things without thinking about them often. And now I'm going to add my onions. So this is 2 cups of onions with a medium dice on them. Nothing real strong dice. And one of the things you want to do when you're sauteing your onions is put a little salt in while they saute. That was about half a teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to move these around a little as they start to saute. And I'm just going to, you can see my sauce over here is getting nice and thick. And the pink, you might not notice on the video, but it's getting pinker. And
yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
You could? Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that. And that's because those sun-dried tomatoes are giving some of that flavor throughout the sauce. So we'll leave that over there. We'll come back to it after we finish our soup. So we're just going to saute these onions for a few minutes. Again, in real life, I would, in real life, like it's not real life when we're on Zoom. But I would let these go until they were clear. But for the sake of time today, we're going to speed everything up, and I'm going to put my other vegetables in a little early. And my other vegetables are carrots and celery. Carrots, onion, and celery are the base to a lot of my soups. I just like that combination of vegetables. It's pretty traditional in cooking to combine those. And we're going to saute those up. And what I would do is, again, let the onions become clear before you add the celery and the carrot, because celery and carrot doesn't have to cook as long as the onions. But for the sake of time in a demo, we're going to speed everything up, and I added them already. Let's see what my next thing is here. So I put those in. Oh, okay. The other thing we'll do at this point, before we add any liquid to the soup, is add our spices. And that helps the spices bloom, or again, release their oils and their flavors. So the spices in this soup are curry powder. If you don't like curry flavor, you could do the same soup with a different flavor profile. You could do like a Greek flavor profile with Greek spices or Italian spices, French spices, whatever flavor profile. I love curries. I love anything spicy. This is not super spicy curry powder, but I just love curry flavors, so I do curry. So I put all my curry powder in there. That was 1.5 tablespoons, I believe. I'm looking here. Oh, I forgot my garlic and my ginger. Oopsie. let's put my garlic and ginger in there before we saute much longer. So again, I would let my onions get clear. Then I would put my garlic and ginger in. I would let them saute a while themselves. But again, for the sake of time, we're kind of throwing everything in because we only have so much time in a cooking demo. And it'll work out fine. It's just a little nicer, a little more layers of flavor if you go this slow instead of mixing everything at once. But again, for a demo, it'll work just fine. Okay, so we got my garlic, my ginger, curry powder. Now we'll add the rest of the spices. Another spice I love is cumin. So I'll just put that in there. And we have thyme, which I'm going to wait till the end to add because it doesn't need to cook a lot. And I'm adding cayenne because I just said I really like spice. But if you don't like spice, use a mild curry powder and don't add any more pepper to it. And it won't be spicy at all. There's lots of mild curries out there, curry powders that don't have any spice. I'm pretty sure, well, I can't remember offhand the Penzeys spices. For those of you in Portland, Penzeys is out in Beaverton. I don't think they have a Portland store anymore, just Beaverton and maybe Clackamas area. And I love their spices. Another spice company I really highly recommend is Burlap and Barrel. Their spices are so fresh and delicious, so I use a lot of theirs as well. And I'm just stirring my other sauce while we go here, and you can see it's getting nice and thick. Look at that. Such a pretty sauce. It's so delicious. Good.
Do we have another?
I like Zoom.
Have another question here that this Ha is saying that cumin is normally included in curry powder, and you already added curry powder. So why are you still adding the cumin?
Why did I add cumin? Was that the question?
On top of that, because isn't it already in the curry powder?
Some curry powders have it. I like a little more of a punch so that it shows up a little more.
Okay.
If you don't add it, the cumin's just balanced with all the other spices.
Mm-hmm.
I want the cumin to be a little more prominent. So that's why I add more.
Sounds good.
I love cumin.
Yeah.
Again, if you don't have it separate, you just have curry powder, that's going to taste great too.
Sounds good.
Okay, and you'll see the spices will start to stick a little on the bottom, but that's okay because when we add the water to this pot, those spices will unstick immediately. Okay.
Just another question in general about spices. How long do you keep the spices that you buy?
I tend to not keep them that long.
Mm-hmm.
Most spices are dated now. And that if you can't smell the spice when you open the jar, it's not doing anything to your food. So if you can't smell it, it's done. But never more than a year. I tend to run more closer to 6 months. The barrel and burlap spices are so fresh, and the Penzeys are pretty fresh too, that a year you can totally get away with a year on their spices. The other great place, especially if you only need a little of a spice, like at Christmas, I might make a recipe that needs a little pumpkin pie spice or something. And I won't go buy a whole big jar of pumpkin pie spice because I don't make it very much. I tend to make it in the winter holidays. And so where I buy those is New Seasons. You can buy your spice in bulk. So you can just buy what you need for the recipe. So you can buy a tablespoon of something. So that's a great way of not wasting spices or not going and buying a bunch of spices that cost a lot sometimes if you have to buy them all together for a recipe. So I love doing that. You can just buy exactly what you need for a recipe and you don't waste anything.
That's great advice. Yeah, thanks.
Great question. Okay, our next thing, we've added all our spices. We've added our carrots and celery. The next thing we're adding is apple. And I'm using a Granny Smith apple. And I've diced it pretty small here because I want the flavor of the Granny Smith apple, which is a little teeny bit sour, but also sweet. but I want it to go throughout my soup. And so if I dice it small like that, it's going to just kind of dissolve. Well, not dissolve is not the right word because it's a solid, but it's going to break down into my sauce. So that's a pretty small dice I've done there. I'll just mix it around. It'll get mixed around more when I add my water in a moment. Next ingredient are my red lentils. So here are my red lentils. I have, put them over here so you can see them. I have rinsed these very well. So when you use red lentils, sometimes you might even see a little mud on them. So you really get in there, rinse them with warm water really, really well so that you get all the dirt off them. You also, anytime you're using lentils, you want to look through and make sure there's no debris in them. They're so tiny that sometimes something can get through when they, when they go through the machines. I buy a lot of my beans from Rancho Gordo, which does a great job in making sure that their beans are clean and there isn't a lot of debris. But even with those beans, you always want to be looking for debris in beans. It's just part of the production process.
Okay. Now the question is, did you peel the apples or leave the skin on?
Yes, the recipe says to peel them. If you left the peel, sorry, I'm grabbing some water off camera here. If you left the peel on, you wouldn't like that very much. It would float to the top and it would just kind of catch in your teeth. It wouldn't be very appetizing. Okay. So I take the peel off.
Sounds good.
Then I'm going to add my water here. And I used too small a pan, I just realized when I picked this pan out. But that's okay. You can make it work. That's the thing about recipes. You never have to follow them exactly. Like if I was really cooking right now, I would just put this in a bigger pot. But again, I don't have that luxury on Zoom. So we're just going to have more of a stew texture at first. And then I'll just add the water later. Should have checked my pan size when I prepped for this. Okay, so we're just going to let this cook. These lentils cook very fast. I'm going to pick one here. I don't know if you can see it, but they're super, super thin. And the recipe says to cook for about 40 minutes. Really, you want to make sure that the carrot is completely cooked through. That would not be a good texture if it wasn't. So that's one of the things I'll really be watching before I blend part of this later in the demo. Okay, and my sauce over here is looking lovely. I can tell my tomatoes are getting lots of them. That is just about done. And I'm going to bring this sauce up to a boil, or sauce soup up to a boil. And again, I still have to add my tomatoes. This is going to get very full. That's okay. I'm going to add my tomatoes. I like to use fire roasted tomatoes in this recipe. These happen to be from Whole Foods. They were cheapest this week. But everybody has fire roasted diced tomatoes. You can get them at Freddy's, New Seasons, really anywhere has them. But I really like the flavor the fire roasting adds to the soup. I'm making stew now, I know, because I didn't put enough water in. Wow, I really pushed it there. That's okay. Okay, I'm just going to give that a little stir and hope I don't spill over the edge. That is crazy full. There we go. Now again, on this cooking demo, probably won't have enough time to really let this soup get to where I would let it get in real life. I watch for those tomatoes to break down. There's chunks in there right now. You can see some of them here. Can we switch to this one? Give it a second here. So you can see some of these chunks of tomatoes, like that one. I am going to watch those, and I want those to start breaking down. And that would be a sign, along with the carrots being completely soft, that my soup was ready. Okay. Those two things have to cook now. And while they do, we are going to talk about potato salad.
And just one question from me for the soup, would you say that was enough for how many people? If it was, I guess it depends on if it's the main course or
Oh,
part
this
of,
soup,
looks like a lot.
again, yeah, it would serve 6 to 8 people for a really hearty dinner, but I usually make it and serve it once for either lunch or dinner and then have it throughout the week. I just eat it for my lunch all week.
Okay, sounds good.
I tend to make things in slightly larger portions so that I don't have to cook every single night.
No, it's great
I
meal
work
planning.
full time and, sometimes I don't feel like cooking after I
Yeah,
work.
that's great. No, that's very helpful.
Okay, let's do our potato salad.
Okay.
So this potato salad is kind of interesting. Um, in the summer, we do a lot of potlucks or picnics with our friends and our neighbors. And I don't like to use like full mayonnaise, like salads, but a lot of us those are comfort foods in the summer, macaroni salad, pasta salads, potato salads. And this is a way of having potato salad, but in a much healthier form than just a bunch of mayo over potatoes. So we're adding tofu, both for the mayonnaise, we're going to make a tofu mayonnaise, and we're adding extra tofu cut up in little pieces to be kind of like the egg that a lot of, at least I grew up with a potato salad that had egg, chopped up and put throughout it. And so it kind of gives that texture and flavor to the salad. So we start this one with a bunch of potatoes. This is 5 pounds of potatoes. I've used 2 different types here. Sorry, I'm just watching my sauces over here. 2 different types. I've used Yukon Gold and Red because that's what I could get this week. And I love to make my potatoes in the Instant Pot. I just think in the recipe, not everybody has an Instant Pot. So I said, boil your potatoes. But the Instant Pot really does something to potatoes. I feel like it makes them like fluffier or something. It's probably the pressure. I've never looked up why. But I really like how the potatoes work that way. So I did these in the Instant Pot. Depending upon the size, if they're little, like that big, like those little baby potatoes, they take about 3 minutes. These were about this big and they took 8 minutes. And sometimes you'll get a bag if you don't pick them all out separately to be the exact same size. You'll get a bag with different size potatoes in it. And if there's a bigger one, I put that on the bottom and I use the rack that comes with the Instant Pot. Put just a 1/2 inch of water on the bottom. And when I put the rack in and I put that biggest potato in the center bottom portion, and often it's fine in the same amount of time. Sometimes I'll have to recook it for a minute in the Instant Pot. So I watch for, those are things I do for my potatoes. But make your potatoes whatever way you've always made them. I grab another spatula here. And so I did these yesterday. The other thing I grew up doing is putting a little apple cider vinegar on my potatoes first to kind of soak in. But I didn't put that in the recipe because I think it's kind of my family tradition. My siblings will say, Mom didn't do that. I'll be like, well, that's how I remember it. I was the youngest, so I had more years with her. So I'll do that sometimes. And I did that with these because I cut them yesterday and I just left them covered in the fridge. So make it any way you would make your normal potato salad. In my family, we put little onions, little onion seed there. So I'm putting onions. This is exactly as the recipe reads. These are very finely diced. I even grate them sometimes. If I'm making it for other people, and I'm not sure how they feel about onions, I'll grate the onion so you taste it, but you don't get the texture. Some people don't like onion texture. I'll just mix those in a little. And then I really like celery. So I have celery in about the same size dice. Frankly, if I was making it just for me and my husband, I'd probably put double that size in or amount in. But I measured this how I would make it for other people. Celery is one of my favorite things. Some people don't think it has a taste. I totally taste it. Okay, so I'm just kind of throwing those things together. We're going to put this aside and make our mayo. I'm going to move this out of my way for a minute and grab some of my mayo ingredients. Okay. I'm going to use a hand blender, but you can make it in a regular blender, or you can even just whisk this and just make it in a regular whisk. Either way will work, but I'm going to use a hand blender and we'll get that plugged in. The other thing is when you use a hand blender, always use the plastic device that the hand blender comes in. I am going to use a glass container to show you what's happening, but you would not do this in real life. I'm going to be extra careful. I already inspected this glass jar. I'm going to inspect it before anybody eats this potato salad because you would never want a shard of glass in your potato salad, obviously. So don't use glass. Use the little thing that comes with your hand blender if that's how you make it. So the first thing we're going to do is add our tofu. And for this recipe, we're using silkened tofu. This one's from Morinu, which happens to be a company here in the Portland metro area. But I think they're moving possibly to California too. I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm dripping some. So make sure it's silken though. You don't want to use regular tofu for this. You have to use silken. And it usually comes in these little boxes, but you might also find it in the plastic container like normal tofu. I've seen it that way at Trader Joe's and I know at Whole Foods. I'm not sure where else I've seen it that way. So I put the tofu in the container and now I'll add the rest of my ingredients. The next ingredient I'm using is some sweet relish. And we're going to add a tablespoon of half a tablespoon of sweet relish. You can use whatever brand. They all taste pretty similar. And I'm just eyeing my half tablespoon. That was a little more than that, but that's okay. So I'm going to taste this and decide what tastes good to me. And I like to add my relish and then blend it and get nice smooth consistency versus the chunks of sweet relish, but some people like the chunks. So again, whatever way you like it, you do you. I'm just going to stir my soup for a minute here because I am right on the edge of full here. I am really tempting fate today. We'll see if we'll overflow that or not. Okay, so sweet relish for sweetness, real traditional in potato salad from at least where I'm from. The next thing we're adding, because we're vegans, frankly, and we're making vegan mayo, is miso paste. Another Trader Joe's. Man, this is becoming a Trader Joe's commercial. It really isn't. I just happened to shop there and they had everything I needed and they tend to be cheap. So I go there. I do really like this miso. It comes in this little packet. And so you can just put what you want in there and it seals up nicely and it lasts forever. So it's a fermented product, so it's not like it goes bad right away. I want a half a teaspoon. I love miso, so I'll probably do a little more than a half a teaspoon. Again, I'm just eyeing it. First time you make something, measure it, and then you'll know what you like as you modify your ingredients. Okay, that was my miso. A tablespoon, so gotta bring my soup down a little. A tablespoon of lemon juice is my next ingredient. Mayo is sharp. It has a acidy flavor, and so I like lemon. I put a little extra in. And then I use, next is apple cider vinegar, actually. So any apple cider vinegar will do. Right now I have a Costco brand. Half a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in there. Again, I like acid. I tend to put things a little more acidic than when I make them for other people. I like a lot of acid. So your recipe always is more for the average person, and I modify it to how I like to eat it. And then I'm going to do a half a tablespoon of mustard. I'm using yellow mustard today. This is, of course, Trader Joe's. I can't believe how many Trader Joe's things are here. This is a yellow mustard, but you could use Dijon mustard. Where I grew up, yellow mustard was super common in potato salads, so it's just my tradition. So that's what I'm using today. Oops, it was right on there. And a teaspoon. So I just put a teaspoon in there. Now I'm going to have yellow fingers for the rest of the demo. That's okay. I'll survive. Okay, that's all our ingredients. So now we just blend it up. And this is always fun because it's always a challenge to not get myself too blended and, you know, it spurts up. So I'm going to just cover it like this. And you should be able to see it. Oh my God. I'm just moving it up and down to get nice consistency and everything blended. And I want those little pieces of sweet relish to mostly be blended, but you'll see little pieces of them usually. It won't. I mean, if I put it in the Vitamix, it would be completely smooth. It gets pretty smooth in this. There we go. Right, the blended. Would you unplug me? I'm going to throw this in the sink just so I don't have it out here. Yeah, or not. I can just hand it to you. There we go. Thank you. Okay, throw this over here. Okay. So this, you noticed I added no oil. So it's really the calories in this are basically the calories in the silken tofu, which 3.5 servings at 45 calories, pretty low for mayo. And it also has, how much protein is in this? 5 grams of protein and 3.5 servings. So that's, you know, you're actually putting protein in your mayo, which is extra nice in my opinion. So I am now going to just take this and dump it in my potato salad. Now, depending how saucy you like your potato salad, you might want to double the mayo if you come from a tradition of very saucy potato salads. It's really your preference. What I find when I make potato salad is that I make it and it seems like it has the right amount of mayo, and then it sits for an hour or so before the potluck or the barbecue I'm going to, and it soaks into your tomatoes. So I always have more made. I have another batch in the fridge. So if this dries out, I can add more. Now, the other thing I mentioned is we're going to add tofu. And can you get a close up of this? These are little teeny chunks. I've chopped them up about the size of what we used to dice the egg as. You could make them bigger if you remember having bigger egg pieces or smaller. And to make the tofu taste eggy, we're using something I used a lot in the demo last year when we were talking about eggs, and that is black salt. And black salt is not black. It's either pink or white. I have 2 different brands here. This is a brand that's very easy to get at a Indian grocery store, or any probably Asian grocery store will have it as well. Super easy to get. I think you can get it on Amazon. It's very inexpensive. So that's one option. I mentioned burlap and barrel a moment ago. I love their spices and I really love their black salt. It's very strong and really very sulfuric, which is what you want when you're making eggs, right? Eggs smell like sulfur. So what I would do normally, again, in demo, we don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to do it as carefully, but I usually would have a bigger bowl. And how much do I usually put in? I had to measure all this once. Half a teaspoon. I'm probably going to go a little over that here. And I'm just going to mix that in with my tofu separately, because I want the tofu, when you get a little pop of that tofu, you're going to get a pop of eggy flavor. So I'll mix it around my tofu. I'm going to do it over my potato salad because it's a small bowl, because I only had so much counter space here. And I would normally mix this and just leave it for a little while before I mixed it into my potato salad. Did I go over? No. And just let it sit. But again, for the sake of time, just going to mix it all in there. And again, these little pops of tofu will taste like that egg that I grew up having egg in my potato salad. And I don't have to be deprived of anything being a vegan, because I can make anything I made back then. My father's side of the family was German, and we used to make a German potato salad with bacon. I make that vegan now too. It's super easy to make things the way we want them, and be nice to animals at the same time. So I like that. I also like that I can make all these things so easily myself. So I can make mayo really easily, make cheese myself. I love that I can make all those things myself. Okay, I got that mixed up pretty well. Couple last minute things I want to put in here. I love dill weed, and I think the recipe I called for a teaspoon. Yeah, I'm going to do about a teaspoon and a half, just because I really like dill weed. So does my cameraman. And I love black pepper in my potato salad. So I'm going to put a ton of black pepper. You do you. You'll also notice I haven't put any salt in this. I mentioned I've been putting a lot of acid in, the apple cider vinegar, the lemon juice. I find when I use those things that I don't need a lot of salt. So I will taste this before I serve it, and I might add salt or I might not, because it'll probably be just fine without any salt.
So the black salt doesn't add any saltiness?
Not really. It's called black salt. But yeah, it doesn't have a like real salty flavor. It's much more just I'm going to taste it. I mean, it has a little salt, but it is salt, obviously. I think they take the salt from some specific place and they put it in a kiln, is how they get that sulfuric taste to it. So it does have a little salt, but that was a teaspoon in this whole big 5 pounds of potato salad. That's not a lot of salt.
Yeah.
In a restaurant, they probably put this size potato salad, they probably put 2 tablespoons. I would not be surprised.
Wow.
Food in restaurants has got incredibly salty. Where'd we go? Oh, yeah, we went out to brunch yesterday, and both my husband and I were downing water the rest of the day. The food doesn't really taste that salty, but it's really salty. Salt adds a lot of flavor for cheap, so a lot of people use a lot of it. It does, I mean, it adds flavor, I get it, but the less you use of it, the healthier you are, because it's not healthy for us in any quantity. And you don't want it as much. And the lemon juice, the cider vinegar is going to take care of that flavor. I'm just going to taste it. See what I think. I'm going to get a smaller bite so I'm not chewing for 5 minutes. Yeah, definitely doesn't need salt. But again, that's me. I think it needs a little more of the mayo. So I'll do that, before I serve this later. So again, you might want to double what I put on the recipe if you like a real mayo-y potato salad. But there we got our potato salad.
Yeah, I love how you have this high protein and low fat. And I'm curious, do you think that an omnivore friend would know that it wasn't really mayonnaise?
I mean, they'll know it tastes a little different, but with all those other flavor boosters in there, they're not gonna say, "Oh, this doesn't taste like mayo," because it does. That tofu mayo tastes like mayo. It's a lot lighter, so they'll notice. I think that it doesn't have as a, rich a mouthfeel is where it's somewhat noticeable. But if you're not serving it next to the real mayonnaise version, no one's going to notice. They'll just notice it tastes great. It's really fresh. Maybe they'll notice it's a little lighter flavor.
They might feel better,
And they're going to feel a heck of a lot better because there's nothing in mayo that's healthy.
Yeah.
And tofu is not low fat, but the amount of fat in this whole thing, 3.5 servings again, 2 grams of fat. So 7 grams of fat in this whole thing. That's insanely low fat.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Even if you double it, 14 grams this is like over 10 big servings of potato salad.
That's amazing.
I made it because I made it in a potluck or big party kind of size. And in our house, if we have some left for lunch the next day, that's fine with us too. So there we go. That is our potato salad.
That's great.
I'm going to move that aside. And we will finish up some of these other dishes. We're going to leave our soup cooking, but I am going to finish up our sauce, which I did turn off a minute ago because I didn't want to lose track of it. And you can see it's pretty thick sauce now. Look at how thick that got, just sitting there. So I am going to turn that back on this front burner while our soup keeps going and get it warm again. And we're going to just do our final touches to it. And a couple things I'm going to do with that. One is I love to put basil on this sauce, fresh basil. And so I am just going to cut my basil, do a nice little chiffonade, a nice little ribbons of basil. And what I've done here is they're pretty much stacked together. And I'm just going to roll them in a tight little cigar shape. I grew up in the Tobacco Valley area of Connecticut, and a lot of my friends work tobacco. And so they know what cigar shape means. Picking tobacco as kids. That always was a very odd thing to me. Can't smoke the stuff, but you can pick it. That can't be healthy. Okay, so I'm doing these little ribbons of basil, which I love basil. Turn this down so you can see my ribbons here. We'll use that on top. And then the last thing we have to put in this is spinach. So I have a big bowl of spinach. Anybody who's made spinach knows it goes down to nothing when you add it. So I'm going to add about 3 cups of spinach to this. And in the recipe, I said cut it, like give it a slice. Frankly, I don't really do that. I think it's prettier, but there's no absolute need to do that. And for the sake of time, we'll just do it like that. And it will wilt down as I just move it around here. It just takes, I'd say maybe 3 minutes for all this spinach to wilt and incorporate in my sauce. And I would say this sauce actually got maybe a little thicker than it normally does. But I think some of the water that comes out of the spinach will loosen it up. Or if I was cooking pasta, I would put pasta water in to loosen it up if I wanted to. Or today I could just put water in if I need to. We'll see. Once this wilts, I might not need to. Just turn up that burner a little bit. And get this mixed in. Just waiting for that spinach to wilt. And you can see my soup is all boiling over here. You can see the lentils are already starting to disintegrate. They still have some texture, but they're pretty much cooked. My tomatoes haven't broken down, and again, for the sake of time, we probably won't wait for them to break down today. But in real life, I'd just let cook until those tomatoes fully break down. Okay, here we go. The wilty lettuce is starting. Lettuce, tomato, or spinach, the wilty spinach. So you can see if I had cut this spinach, it would be dispersed a little differently than it is, because it would be smaller pieces, but I kind of like the bigger pieces. I love spinach though. So I guess to each his own. And if you don't like spinach, you just leave it out. And leave the artichokes out if you don't have them or you don't like them. Doesn't have to have them. There you go. So you can see it was only a couple minutes and those just blended right into this sauce. I'm just gonna let that cook a minute, get that flavor, and then I'll mix them into my beans and we'll finish that dish up. Let that cook a minute, have some beans here. Now, you could use any kind of bean that you want to use. I happen to love giant beans. I'm just obsessed with these things. You can get them in different types. There's California, like Royal Coronas. There's Italian Coronas that are huge like this. These are giant lima beans. Lima beans have a little more taste than the Corona beans, but these are not those lima beans of your childhood that were kind of gross and from a can. Not like that at all. They have a very pleasant, little bit of flavor, just really nice, soft texture with a little bite on the outside. So they're really, really delicious. And what I do for this is I'm just going to scoop, oh no, that was 1/4 cup of sauce. And again, I do this in a much larger portion normally, but I'm just doing a single portion because my cameraman hasn't had lunch. So he's going to get a little snack here in a minute. And you just mix that up. I think maybe a little bit more. Just a little. Turn that off so I don't forget. And then just a little bit of basil on the top. And we are done. Get a little picture of that on the camera.
That looks great.
Yeah, it is really delicious. And again, we're boosting our protein with those beans. If you don't eat a lot of beans, you should. They are so good for us. The cameraman's going to reach in there. Every day, you'll hear a report about how good beans are for our health. And so any way you can add those to your diet is awesome. My favorite is probably the combo of the pasta and the beans. I prefer beans over pasta, so I often just eat them like I just made them with just the beans. It's kind of a nice dip too, like on a charcuterie platter, because this sauce, even if it gets a little room temperature, it's still delicious. So that's a kind of cool way to use it. I talked about the lasagna I make with it. What else have I done with this sauce? It's good as a dip just with nothing, like just like it is now, warm. You could put dip bread into it. That would be really good in the winter. That would be nice, like fulfilling, warm way to eat it. So lots of great ways to eat it. Okay, so we are at our final recipe. How are we doing on time, Kathy?
1:10. So you're doing great.
I'm not running late for
Yeah, you're doing great.
I always try to do too much. I really tried to get the right amount this time. Yeah. So really all we have left to do with this soup, again, it's a little thicker because I used the wrong pan. Sorry, I went for the pretty pan versus the right size pan. So it wouldn't be quite this thick when you make it with the full 10 cups of water, or 12 cups, whatever's 10. I had an 8-cup thing and then I added 2 more. So I'm a good 4 cups low on this. So yours will be a little thinner, but you can serve it as a stew, thick like this, and you could serve it just like this. You don't have to blend it up. If you don't have a blender, just serve it like this. It's delicious. Let me see what I got to remember what I do to finish this up. I know I put cilantro. Um, when I serve this, I don't have the room right now, but I do usually put spinach in it. But I often just make it like this. And in the day, like I only take a 30-minute lunch at break or lunch at work. So I put spinach in the bottom of my bowl, and then I put a cup of that on top of it and microwave it. And it's perfect. It's like the spinach. I tend to put a lot of spinach or maybe even kale or Swiss chard, whatever the farmer's market had. And so I tend to put a lot more of it. Recipe says to add 3 cups. Again, I would need a much bigger pot to do that. So I'm not going to do that for you today, but I think you know what that looks like. I do like adding cilantro to it at the end. I've cut it up here really fine. And again, I know this is something that there's a lot of people out there who don't like cilantro. I am not one of them. I like it. I thought maybe it was a genetic thing, like litmus paper, that people didn't like cilantro, but I didn't like it. And then now I do. So I think it maybe is one of those foods you have to try a bunch of times to like and not think it tastes like soap, which is what people say they don't like about it. So I'm going to go ahead and add that at the very end after I blend some of this. I also add lemon juice at the end. If you cook it with the lemon juice, first of all, that's going to hamper your lentils from softening. Acid, we already have acid from the tomatoes in there. Too much acid can keep beans from softening. So I add it at the end. I also think that helps the flavor. When lemon cooks, it cooks out that brightness. So I don't add it early. I add that at the end. And my husband loves lemon juice, so I always have extra for him with this soup. And he'll add like a tablespoon to a cup. He just loves adding lemon to it. It tastes really good. So let's blend up a little of it. I am going to add some to the Vitamix here. Typically, what did I say? I think I said to do half. Oh, about 4 cups. So no, not half, about a third. And is this a cup? Yep, 1 cup. So I'm going to add 4 cups of the soup, and I'm going to try to get a lot of those lentils. I also, when I make this, I always try to get any of the apples that are floating. You always have some apples that float that don't break down for some reason, some pieces of apple. So I always kind of skim those off the top. But a little pop of apple is also really good in the soup. But mostly I'm just trying to dig down and get a lot of those lentils to blend because it makes it a more creamy soup. So I'm going to take about 4 cups, give or take. I don't know that ladle I used was exactly that. When you're blending hot foods, make sure that this is not tight or it'll spurt out the top. So I actually took my cover, the little cover that goes in the hole, took it off. And what I'm going to do is hold a cloth over that so that air can get out and it doesn't pop my cap off. Does that make sense, Kathy?
Yeah, no, sure it does.
Okay. Just making sure I'm making sense today.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to blend. I'm not going to talk while I blend just because it's annoying. And you don't need a high-speed blender for this. You could use a regular blender. The high speed is nice. It gets it a really nice consistency, but a regular blender would be absolutely 100% fine. And then I'm just going to add all that deliciousness back in the soup. And so without any cream or added fatty things like cream, I've now made kind of a creamy soup. If you look at this, wait till the camera comes over here. There we go. So you can see a nice creamy, but you still have some texture of the vegetables that were still in there. So again, this is pretty thick. I like it. I would normally serve it a little thinner. but because I selected the wrong pan size, rookie mistake, it's a little thick. There we go. Let me just grab a bowl. Forgot to do that. We'll just serve this up. Oh, before I do that, don't forget to add your cilantro at the end. And this will cook a little. This is Northwest cilantro, so we don't have to worry about cooking our cilantro. Based on what's going on in the news, you might want to, but this is nice locally grown cilantro. I don't have to worry.
We have a question. Can you use a hand blender directly in the pot?
You could, but then you're not controlling how much chunk is left. But it is simple to do that. So sure, if I'm in a hurry, that's how I'm going to do it. If I'm making it maybe for a get together, maybe I'll take a little more care like I just did. But yeah, it'll work fine. It just doesn't control it as well.
Okay.
And I like that I get some full pieces like that apple right there. Or the celery piece. So I like that.
You get a little bit of both that way.
Yeah. But you could full cream this, like make a nice creamy soup of it if you prefer, or you could do like I did, half and half. It's really up to you and what you prefer. I'm gonna grab a bowl. And again, this will be a thinner texture when you do it. There is our lovely soup. Oh, it smells so good. It's kind of a take on a mulligatawny, which is kind of a British Indian soup. A lot of the flavors are inspired by that, but I've changed it over the years to just be my own thing. No cream. I think mulligatawny usually has cream. I'd have to look at a recipe because I don't look at them that often for traditional dishes like that. And I've been making this for years this way. So it's my thing. I like it this way. But like I said, I could do the same base if I didn't feel like Indian flavors this week. I could do an Italian inspired, Greek inspired, Spanish inspired, African inspired would be awesome. Put a little peanut butter in there and some Burberry spice would be really good. And now I want that instead of this, whatever. So you could do whatever. Penzies has these jars. They come in all sizes, but they're often giveaways. If you sign up for Penzies mail list, they often give away different flavor profile spices. Like this one, it's an empty jar right now, but it's Italian herbs. So instead of the spices I did, you could just put a tablespoon of this in or whatever flavor you want. And don't forget to taste it, preferably before you spoon it out. And adjust with, again, salt. I did a little salt at the beginning. Yeah, it doesn't need it because it has so much lemon, which was in with my apples. I didn't say that, but I cut my apples early and I put them in lemon juice because I didn't want them to get brown. So I taste plenty of lemon, which is subbing for any more salt. My bouillon, also my stock, also had a little salt in it. So I think that has plenty of salt. It has really good curry flavor. And again, I used to not be a cilantro person, but that cilantro just does something, again, layers some flavors and it comes out really nice. So I think that was all our recipes.
Yeah, that sounds also good. And you
I didn't even have to rush at the end.
Yeah, no, you did a great job. And all that's just, it looks and sounds delicious. I guess I wish I could smell it and taste it.
Well, I know you've had the Marry Me sauce.
Yeah.
This is inspired by Marry Me sauce.
Yeah, okay.
I have had that with Kathy before.
Yeah.
But this soup, I have Tom swing by.
Yep.
We have a bunch.
Delighted. You'd be delighted. Thank you so much. Are there any questions from anybody? I mean, we answered them as we went along, but if anybody has some
questions.
And they can also reach me through the emails that they how they knew about this. So and also
if you're listening to the recording, Kathy is so responsive. You can send her a question and she will get back to you. She'll contact me if she needs to, but she needs a lot too.
Yeah, well, you're the expert, but also, and on the YouTube thing, there's a place to ask questions. So I'll look and see if that's there. Well, thanks, Kris. This was
You're welcome.
a lot of fun.